Winchester, England, April 24th, 2022. A mysterious formation emerges in a field of mustard plants. The perfectly symmetrical design is a phenomenon known as a crop circle. And it is just one of many strange patterns that appear in the English countryside every year.
Crop circles are basically features, designs, illustrations of high complexity in crops. They tend to be complicated designs of unknown origin.
In terms of the patterns themselves, they've been undergoing this amazing sort of ramp up in sophistication. You can find these huge, what they call pictographs, that span hundreds of feet across a whole field and feature multiple components. And they're arranged with mathematical precision.
Crop circles appear in more than 50 countries, and there literally have been thousands of them. Maybe over 10,000 crop circles that we're aware of in the modern era.
It's one small step for man.
Welcome to Earth.
One giant leap for mankind.
What's up, man? It's Rick. UFOs are real.
What's up, everybody? How we
yo.
doing?
What's going on?
Hey, it's Justin, Dustin, and Tomas back up in ya. Back here to tickle your fancy, and today we're talking about crop circles and geoglyphs. Thank you to Ancient Aliens for the intro. So dramatic. Gotta love our friends at History Channel that gave rise to the infotainment for UFOs and aliens, baby. How you gentlemen doing today? Doing okay?
Doing great.
Doing good.
Tomas has got his velvet headphones on there.
That's right. Brought these bad boys out.
What are those called? Softies?
I can't remember. I think so. Softies.
They look very
softies.
plush. They look very plush.
Yeah, comfy.
Did you have a little guest running around there too? You're back in La La Land.
Max.
There we go.
Look at that dog. Look at that dog.
We've got a guest appearance, and it's Max, everybody's favorite French bulldog. Everybody, how we doing, buddy?
Loves licking his nuts.
Yeah. So, well, very cool. Well, let's jump right into it, guys. So crop circles, geoglyphs. I'm stoked. I've been hyped on crop circles since I was a kid. I mean, I think crop circles and UFOs and just the aura of UFOs and the pop culture, the modern UFO phenomenon. Crop circles are like a hallmark of that, right? Like we were joking before we came on air. You guys already got UFO tattoos. We were thinking, hey, the next one would be cool to get some crop circle geometrics because nothing says UFOs. Like when you see a crop circle, you think UFOs. I don't care whether now Dustin will get us into whether it's a hoax or not, but hand in hand, pop culture wise, the reference goes with UFOs, right? I'm not crazy.
What kind of design would you want to get? Anything interesting?
I don't know.
I'm gonna get it on the top of my head.
I'd get one of the fancy ones that we'll get into. I would probably get one of the fancy ones that's got like binary code or something and have some kind of hidden message or something like that. I think that'd be cool.
What about placement? Left cheek? Tomas wants on top of his head.
Ooh.
I'll go right cheek. You go left cheek, I'll go right cheek.
I'm going to go like right here on the neck, like below the ear.
Okay.
Just that one that says like, I'm not hireable. I'm an entrepreneur or nothing. There is no plan B when you get a neck tap.
It's all in.
Excuse me. Yeah. All in, baby. 2 feet in.
All in or nothing.
So, Dustin, what exactly are crop circles? Let's take it.
Yeah.
Jump from there. Excuse me.
That's clear. You good?
I don't know what's happening right now. I'm too fired up.
Yeah, step it back.
I think I got some crop in my throat right now. I got some wheat or barley or dust. I don't know. Go ahead. You take it. What are crop circles, Dustin?
Okay, so as we heard in that opening video, crop circles are a pattern or design created in a field of crops, usually like wheat or corn, by flattening or bending the stalks. not cutting them. In the modern era, they're bent or they're flattened. These formations can range in a size from a few feet to hundreds of feet in diameter, and often feature complex geometric shapes and intricate designs. While some crop circles are man-made, others have been attributed to extraterrestrial or paranormal activity. Though there is very little scientific evidence to support these claims. The thing is that most crop circles are consistent to human causation and falls within that hoax category and all this, which is added to the stigma associated with UFOs. But I mean, what's the difference between we're not just talking about crop circles, we're also talking about geoglyphs. So what's the difference between the two? Justin, what's a geoglyph?
So crop circles are obviously it's in the right, happens in crops in farmers' fields, as you just read out. A geoglyph is a pretty easy definition. It's just anything that is a scarring or scabbing of the earth to basically create a drawing in the earth. So a geoglyph can come in two ways. Either you dig into the earth to reveal like a different color soil, and that's how you can make a drawing, or the stacking and arranging of multicolored rocks or something to form your patterns and to form your pictograph there, essentially. So geoglyphs are essentially the blown up version, more commonly associated, like really they're only truly visible from the air. But they are from airplanes, and then obviously you can get up into satellites and stuff, but they're basically the big brother of petroglyphs. So petroglyphs are like what caveman or Native Americans or any ancient culture when they're doing rock carvings or rock paintings, but those are on a small scale, right? And it's on on the face of a boulder. Geoglyphs are blown up, and they're sometimes hundreds of feet tall, long, wide, all that stuff. So that's what a geoglyph is. And there's just like in the opening clip, there's been thousands, maybe 10,000 or more crop circles found. The same thing is there's thousands of geoglyphs across the globe. And there's we'll get into certain famous areas, but you get into like say the Nazca lines, the history, right? One of the more famous ones. There's like 400 geoglyphs in that area. So
I didn't even know there was that many out there. That's wild.
Yeah, dude, wild. So, why don't you walk us through the history of crop circles, Dustin? Because there's kind of like the modern era that I was, watching and kind of reading up on, but I know they go back a little bit further and stuff too. So, what'd you find when you looked into the history of crop circles?
Yeah, so one of the first ever reported crop circle happened long ago. I'm talking 17th century. It's dubbed the Mowing Devil because of the title of the English woodcut pamphlet that was published in 1678. The pamphlet tells of a farmer in Hertfordshire who was refusing to pay his price demanded by a laborer to mow his field and swore he would rather the devil mow his field instead. According to the pamphlet, that night, his field appeared to be inflamed, and the next morning the field was found to be perfectly mowed, that, quote-unquote, no mortal man was able to do it like this. So, yeah, Tomas pulled up the article. This is I assume the article from the wooden pamphlet from 1678. So this is the first kind of documented crop circle, if you will. I think it's kind of cool that it's reported that there was, his field was lit up in the middle of the night.
There's a lot of...
It was mowed.
There's lots of lights and odd mists, and some people report missing time and that kind of stuff. So very interesting.
But the big discrepancy between this particular reported event was that it was cut. It wasn't flattened or bent at the stalk like it is in the modern era of crop circles here. But yeah, I mean, really, crop circles started being reported, started piling up in the 70s, where it really got real famous. Farmers were reporting them all over the world, but mostly reported in England at the time. They started as simple as just, simple circles and oval shapes. And then throughout the 80s and the 90s, not only did the numbers of reports grow, but so did the complexity of these patterns. And I kind of wanted to start off with an example of one of these, Tomas, if you wanted to cue up that video and we could see an example of one of these bad boys.
One formation had everyone baffled, and people were saying, well, what is this? Then a mathematician had a look at it and said, wait a minute, that's a representation of pi, and it's correct down to 10 decimal places.
It's a representation of pi in a geometric sense. It's kind of interesting because the way you get pi out of it is the lengths of the different arcs in each segment. And what happens is there's these little notches in the spiral that let you know you're at the end of an arc. So you actually have to measure the arc lengths as you go around, and their lengths give you the digits of pi. And there's a little circle to give you the decimal point. So it's a really interesting example of using geometry as a code for representing digits and numbers.
It just shows the level of knowledge, mathematical knowledge, geometric skill that goes into making these things. Many of the most famous crop circles actually derive from fractal patterns. The Mandelbrot set, the Julia set. To make these, you have to have knowledge of math. Mathematics is, of course, the universal language. If we ever encounter aliens, they're not going to speak English or French or German. We'll speak and we'll communicate via mathematics. Could crop circles, as some believe, be an attempt from an alien civilization to reach out and communicate with us?
There's a consistent amount of sacred geometry, tetrahedrons, cubes, octahedrons, and even more complex geometric patterns. Many of our best and top scientists are now saying that this geometry is the secret keys to the higher dimensions, and it's right there in the crops, as if they're giving us a trail of breadcrumbs, showing us how to get to the next level as a planet.
So those are pretty rad.
Yeah.
I don't know how any human could really do it. I mean, you have to be pretty smart. You have to be pretty quick. You have to be precise.
So I also did a little research on those crop circles as well, and some of the stuff that I came up with was that they also represent. Let me just find the word here. Sound patterns. Ancient.
Really?
They're called mandalas. So a lot of these. Some of these crop circles, they're geometric, and they're associated with geometry. And then some of them are shapes that are made that, like ancient Hindu texts described as mandalas, which are describing the universe in terms of sound and vibration. So if you put like sand on a drum or like a metal plate, like a German scientist did this in the 1800s or whatever. He was a musician and a scientist. He put sand on a plate, and then if you play certain notes and frequencies, the sand creates certain shapes. And some of those shapes, like the famous, like the Om, is a circle with a dot in the middle. If you play the resonant frequency of the Om from meditation and chanting and from these practices, it creates that circle, that large circle with a dot in the middle. And that's what they're seeing in some of these crop circles. So it's not impossible that a human brain could be copying ancient texts or creating. I just think that when you factor in the messaging and the content of what the crop circle is, and then I know you're going to get into the execution of how to create such a thing, the complexity of both those things together start to make me ask questions, and that's what makes it such a mystery, because one or the other, I think humans could theoretically achieve, essentially. But them together is taking it to the next level. Would you agree?
100%. I mean, it's extremely creative. And it's intricate. Like, it's not something that you can easily do as a human. I mean, you need a couple of you, but to be able to sneak into the night, I've never heard of any reports people being caught going out and sneaking out into a field and making these making these crop circles and these patterns. But
so there's crop circles. So the modern one, I believe, was the first one that was in the modern era that was associated, not counting 1678, the mowing devil, but was an Australian guy who saw it. He said he saw a light ascend out of a lagoon, and it made essentially a circle, a crop circle. It wasn't really crops, but it was in like the reeds of the lagoon, and that was in like 1966. And then, like you said, in the 70s, 80s, and definitely into the 90s, you see like an explosion of these. A lot of them in England, but they are all over the world. There's some in Mexico. There's in Japan. They're very popular in South America. South America is where a lot of the geoglyphs come from. But in 1991, and I know you pulled up the guys' names. I don't have their names off the top of my head, but that's in 1991 is when we get the two guys who claimed that they were hoaxing it, right?
Mm-hmm.
And they took responsibility for some, but you can tell the difference between some of the man-made ones that they were doing and some of the stuff. At least when I was looking at stuff, you could see like they're not making perfect circles. You can see that they kind of they're rough. Like if you tried to draw a perfect circle by hand right now on a piece of paper, you could not do it, right? So the efficiency of how these things are made, I don't know, man. I scratch my head. I know that human beings are making some of them. We know that for a fact, but there's no way they're making all of them.
Yeah. I actually tried to make a crop circle. I don't know if you've seen this music video I shot for some friends of mine, but we went out to the field with a mower, and we had a nice riding lawnmower, and we're ripping circles. It was hard, dude. I mean, it's not perfect. It's not perfect by any means.
Right.
But you could definitely tell it's not easy to accomplish. But those two men you were talking...
Yeah, go ahead.
Those two men you were talking about, Doug Bauer and Dave Chorley were their names.
Yep.
They try to claim responsibility for thousands of crop circles all up around the British countryside, saying that they use simple tools such as planks and ropes to create these designs.
Right.
However, their claims were not accepted by researchers and enthusiasts, and there's still debate to this day about how these things are made. I mean, we could watch a video of it. I think Tomas has a video queued up, and we could kind of gauge on if we think these two are bright enough to accomplish these things.
Dang.
Yeah, I said it.
Let's take a peek. Let's take a peek at what Doug and Dave have to offer us.
It's a mystery as old as the hills. Just how do these perfect circles appear in the middle of cornfields? It's baffled scientists, it's baffled experts, it's even baffled the newspapers. Over the years, the suggestions as to how the circles get there have been getting, well, cornier. Could it be the work of UFOs or magnetic forces or little green men? Or was it the Earth appealing for man's help to save the planet? Today, the world's press gathered in anticipation to hear the answer. Their interest had been aroused by an article in this morning's Today newspaper. At long last, there would be proof of earthly involvement. Two men in their 60s from Southampton had been making circles for years, and they would show how it was done.
I lived in Australia from 1958 to 66. And when I came home, during their time in Australia, there was a report in their newspapers of a circular depression in a grass field in Queensland. And they immediately called it a UFO nest. In other words, it was where a UFO had landed. I've always been a bit interested in UFOs and sightings and that sort of thing. But when I came home in 66, I met Dave, who was a fellow artist. And we used to go venture out on Friday evenings and have a chat about watercolours and things and have a pint of beer. And one evening, summer evening, we saw a cornfield, and I remarked to him about this. And I said, why don't we put a circular depression in this cornfield, the same as they had out in Australia? I said, the UFO Society here, which was at its height at the time, Warminster especially, I said, they will probably think that it is a UFO that had landed.
All this could be said to be a somewhat flattening experience for the expert's expert on corn circles, Pat Delgado from Alresford in Hampshire. He's written 2 books on the subject. Was he convinced by the demonstration?
I think it's impossible with the piece of equipment. They had a board and a rope, and like it was a horse they were riding. And I think the giveaway really is that when they put their foot on the board, the other leg with all their weight on it and the weight of the board is obviously on the crop that they've just pressed down. So it would be quite easy to trace their footsteps because he couldn't hop along on one leg. It would have to, unless he can hop along on one leg with a board.
Others with doubts are the members of the Wessex Skeptic Society. They know a thing or two about hoaxes themselves.
About 5 of us manufactured a circle on land at Clinch Common, fairly complex central circle and a few satellites. And it was promptly and almost unanimously, I believe, pronounced genuine by a great number of circles experts, including Terence Meaden.
The men from the newspaper went away happy. They'd had the world's press literally running in circles. But for serious circle watchers, a lingering doubt remains.
So look at that one they're showing there at the end. It's not it's not even close.
Special. No,
it's not even close to being symmetric. No, you can see the lines are widening. You can watch them as they're bending the stocks down. Some bend, some don't. Right? It's not smooth. It's not perfect. It's anything but. Like, it's close. For sure. But the legit ones that people are talking about, like,
they're impressive.
Are fucking perfect, dude. Like the stuff is laid down, and sometimes it's like braided together. It looks like someone braided the wheat, like they folded one over the other, so that everything lays down perfectly flat, and they're like geometrically perfect. And I also did found some research that, like, someone did some experiments on these ones that were considered legit, that were they were reading out high microwave, like they had there was radiation signals, like they had been microwaved, and what they found was that the crops, the actual corn crops inside of the circle grew 5 times faster than corn outside of the circle. And what was fascinating was there was an effect called ghosting that happened, that after the season goes through, the farmers would come through, harvest the crop, mow it all down, and then a year or two later, when all the crops grow back and there's no more depressions, the thing is, the crops that grew back were different, and it was still in the same shape. You could still see the thing. So it's not about just laying it down with your foot to get a laugh out of, like, conspiracy theorists. There's some legitimate stuff that's going on here that those guys just failed to address. And there's even people that accuse those two men of being part of, like, the British intelligence sort of running like an old version of a PSYOP to basically go out there and spread disinformation. So I don't like those guys. Fuck you, Doug and Dave.
They looked very smug. I mean, homie was chilling there, leaning up against a car, ripping a cig. It was really hard to take them seriously. I'm sure they've done their artwork, and that maybe it wasn't a PSYOP, and maybe it was more of like promotional for them if they're artists. You know, I don't know if it was pushing anything for them. But
the sad part of this thing is that this is part of the overarching problem with the stigma around UFOs. Is even you can hear the tone in that in the narrator's voice, right? It's going to be corny. It's little green men, blah blah blah. And it's like, why do you go straight to that? Who the fuck said it was little green men? First of all, you just said that. Second of all, you have these guys out here making claims. They go around, they push down a few stalks of crop. You write up a big fat article that says the men who con the world, and you run that, and it's not remote. Who to hell with it, whether it's remotely true or not. But you probably sold a shit ton of newspapers with that buzzy headline. Yeah. And the problem is since 1991, now all of a sudden everybody's like, well, all crop circles and all of these things are hoaxes. What?
Yep.
Those guys were 60 years old in 1991. They're dead and gone probably at this point, right? I mean, that's like 30 years from now. So they'd be in their 90s. They're definitely not doing it anymore. I did research that there are still... Man, I thought doing a UFO podcast was nerdy enough, but there are people who are crop circle enthusiasts, apparently, that they get together and they go out and they do make crop circles. But I don't think they're trying to pass it off as UFO related. That's what they do for fun, I guess. But these people did report these are the people that are going out there to make man-made crop circles, they're reporting that when they go out there, that they lose time. They're saying that they see strange lights, strange mists. Some of them have said that they've witnessed lights, and then 5 minutes later there'll be a crop circle there, or they've thought about going out to this farmer's field, like, hey, we should go out and do a crop circle tomorrow, and then they'll go, and then there'll already be one, or something like that, right? Like they have all these kind of interesting phenomenon, and that's from people that are making man-made crop circles. So anyway, it's funny that I'm leaning more towards aliens than Doug and Dave. You know what I mean? Like I'm the one who's cautious. I try to be like more skeptical, but sometimes it's just staring me in the face, you know?
They're copycats, dude. They're absolute copycats. Someone else or something else created that first pattern that inspired those two, you know, and went off and did their own thing and got their media coverage. So good for them.
Right.
I guess you can say. What do you think the purpose of crop circles are, if you want to get into the theories of these a little bit? Do you think it's specifically the craft, propulsion, creating these things? Do you think there's more of a purpose there to these shapes?
We got crop circles and we have geoglyphs, and there's two very different things going on, because Doug and Dave obviously have nothing to do with geoglyphs. No. So geoglyphs, let me just give you both here. So crop circles tend to err on the side of geometry and mathematics. They have been increasing in their intricacy. There was two that were very cool that I wrote down. One was a perceived response from the Arecibo message. So back, Arecibo is the radio satellite out of Puerto Rico, and we sent out a radio signal to a galaxy far, far away, and it was in a rectangular shape, and it was written in binary code, and at the top it counted from 1 to 10. There was an image of a DNA sequence. I can't. The term eludes me right now, but the twirly thing, double helix. There we go. Double helix.
There you go.
There was a little human being, and then there was like, I forget all of it, but there was a general, like a binary code message. And there was a glyph that a crop circle that came back that was essentially a response. Instead of there was a sequence that was not a human DNA, it was a different type of DNA. And instead of a human being, it was like a little gray alien looking, bulging head or whatever. And it was different type. It was like a math equation response to what we had sent out. And the location was fascinating because it was laid down right next to these big giant satellite dishes that the UK uses for monitoring and defense and stuff. So I think that crop circles have this sort of communication. There's this mathematical conversation happening. Geoglyphs, the history of geoglyphs goes back. They can be proven to go back to 10,000 years old. Some of them, because they can find some of them are 4,000 or 5,000. Some of them can go back to 10,000. Some of the early explanations, like there's the ones called the works of the old men. Those are spread out all over the Middle East. So across Syria, Jordan, Saudi Arabia, there are these pits. And some scientists say that they were hunting pits that you would, there you go, Tomas. Thanks, buddy. There you go. That's a circular one. And then they also kind of make these like sort of triangular looking ones. And that supposedly these hunter-gatherer people would round up gazelle into these pits. And then the idea was that it was like a killing pit. And then you would go and either kill them, or you would build a wall for it to jump over the wall. And then you would dig a pit on the backside of it. So Tomas is pulling up the Google Earth image of where that is. If he just keeps zooming out, you'll see it. And there's literally hundreds and hundreds, like 500 of these things across the Middle East, covering hundreds of miles. So the best explanation for some of these is that they were old hunting things. But the ones out in Peru, the Nazca lines, The Atacama Giant, which is down in Chile. Who knows, man? Like, why would you take the time 5,000 years ago, right? We're talking about hunter-gatherer. Like, they're not watching Netflix and chilling back then, dude. They wake up, and their number one goal that day is to figure out, how am I going to eat? How am I going to drink water? How am I going to survive another day on this godforsaken planet, right?
Mm-hmm.
Why in God's name would you take time out of your day to go and draw a picture of an astronaut or a man or a spider or a parrot 400 feet tall on the side of a mountain? I have no idea, and it's not visible except for from the air. We did not even know those things existed until 1926 is when the Nazca lines were first seen, and that's because that's when we were first starting to fly airplanes in the area, and somebody looked down and was like, holy shit, there's a bunch of designs in the ground. So I don't know what the theories are. What did you find when you were looking up stuff? Because to me, it remains still a mystery.
Well, I think Nick Pope kind of nailed it in that video we shared earlier with it being kind of a universal language. As far as crop circles, because it's so mathematically based, it can be a form of communication. I think with the Nazca lines and the geoglyphs, I think that is also another form of communication, but it's simplified. If it's man-made on the ground, which the geoglyphs do look like they're man-made. They are massive, and that's going to take a lot of time to do. But I think it's trying to communicate. I think it's the opposite communication, where crop circles are essentially extraterrestrials trying to communicate with us, to where maybe these geoglyphs are us trying to communicate with the gods, the stars, and the beings from above.
Right, Tomas, pull up some of the ones I sent you. So like there's like a white horse. That one is that is called the Uffington white horse. That is found on the side of a hill in England. So a bunch of stuff going on in England, man. You got Stonehenge, you got this Uffington horse.
Massive.
Look at that thing.
Massive.
And so that's carved into the side of this hill, and just, for what other purpose, because you can't see it except for from the air. It's not like you'd put it on the side of a mountain where, like, if you were a pharaoh, like the Egyptians were building, pyramids and tombs and things like that. It's like, this isn't to scare away anybody. It's not to like claim your territory, because nobody would see it. They'd walk right past it. Pull up the little man looking one with the crazy hair. That's the Atacama Giant, Tomas, and that one's going to be found in Chile. And dude, this straight up looks like I don't want to call it an alien, or it's a humanoid. Let's call it it's definitely got 2 legs, 2 arms, a head, some kind of headdress or something going on, a crown maybe, like,
And do you know roughly how big that is?
Dude, that thing is like, it's like 200 feet tall. They said that the Atacama Giant, so that's kind of on a sloping hill. It can be seen from 17 miles out to sea. So as you are, Tomas, you can probably find that one on the Google Earth website. And if you go to that website, and then I think it was like it's one of the top ones, Tomas, like 2 or 3. Tomas can show us. It's close to the coastline. So another interesting thing about the geoglyphs is that they are always found close to water. So these ones are found close to the ocean, but then there's ones. I'm trying to the Paracas candelabra. There's one that's up in northern Nevada, next to an old lake bed. So there's a lot of dried up old ancient lakes that these things appear. There you go. So you see, look, they're not far from the ocean right down there. So Peru and Chile are, they're close to the coast. So what reason? I don't know. It's just kind of interesting that it seems to come, near water. Also, ancient Native American tribes claim that there's the older glyphs were not made by them; they were made by giants, and they bring back the origin mythos, if you will, of ancient giants or an ancient species that were here kind of before us. And it goes back to that 10,000, 14,000 BC time frame, which I don't want to get too crazy on you, but that lines up with Graham Hancock and his timeline and his theory about that there was a different, older civilization that was wiped out during a great cataclysmic flood era. And it kind of holds true if a lot of these are up near the water and there's something going on. And then post-apocalyptic flood myth, our ancestors, right? So we also have the Blythe intaglios. I don't know how to say that correctly, but those were supposedly built by the Aztecs in California, in Blythe, California. It's down in Southern California. They are... there's a lot of these ancient myths around Aztecs, Mayans, Central American, South American culture that these gods came to them from the ocean, came to them from the water, like Quetzalcoatl. God, I'm terrible with
Quetzalcoatl.
Quetzalcoatl, thank you.
Nailed it.
That they came from the ocean. There you go. There's that's the Blythe in the Colorado Desert in Southern California.
So those are visible from the ocean as well, not just from the sky?
I don't know if those are visible from the ocean. Those are more inland, heading towards like Arizona.
Okay.
Like towards just
inland.
south of like the Mojave. Yeah. So you're not going to see those. But the history of that one, because I'm all over the place right now. You got me fired. You pulled my string. I'm fired up. So this is supposedly the I want to make sure I get this right here. These were supposedly made by the Nahuas, who were the ancestors of the Aztec people, and that this could have been where they had their fabled city Aztlan was their capital city, and that's why they think these glyphs and stuff are in that area. There's one here that's like of a pregnant woman or a woman giving birth or something, and then next to it is a big one like a jaguar or some kind of cat, and it's like jaguars are not native to California, right? So why would that glyph be showing up in Southern California? What is obviously California now wasn't back then. Lot of mysteries, man. I don't know why they're there, and I really, in all the research I found, nobody really does. It's just people taking educated guesses. But if you if you listen to the origin stories of like the native cultures that are still there, that's where we get a lot more of the mystery. You know, I'll say another thing about these things is they tend to line up with constellations. So a lot of these ones here in Blythe, they represent like the tail of that jaguar represents the Big Dipper. And that's how they used to communicate. And I'll also tell you, just to keep digging deeper and layer this on.
There we go. Dig, baby.
You got all the Native American, the Southwest Native American, and then sort of the Central American and South American. There's a lot of origin stories that a lot of these ancient peoples believed that they were from the cosmos, right? They believe that they're descendants of star people. And many of their gods are star gods. And so they put these big glyphs out there as a way to communicate to their star gods and as a way to teach other generations about where they descended from in the galaxies. I find that incredibly fascinating.
Yeah.
Man, I mean, you're talking about thousands of years ago, these people are like, we're from that star, Sirius B or whatever, you know, Orion's belt, whatever you have it. And then you take time out of your day to commemorate that in the earth. That's pretty cool, man. And that's pretty epic, right? Why would you do that unless something
There's
big
purpose
was
behind it.
Yeah, something was compelling you to do that.
So it's not just a beautiful piece of art. It's and it could be communication, but it also could be a map. You know, it could be general areas showing like it's a star map. So it's like, but back then we weren't flying as far as we know of. So who's needing that map from the sky?
Well, and look, man, I mean, in terms of the idea of it being art is just silly because art is something you do art is something that we do because we live in a civilization where we don't have to worry about food every day. I can walk to my refrigerator right now and eat something. And so once you take care of those basic fundamental building blocks of life, that's when you begin to be able to stop and ponder the universe and figure out bigger problems. And that's where we're at now, is we've just been building off of our ancestors and our forefathers' hard work, right? They learned how to like cultivate crops and basically make food. So you and I, we can sit here and podcast and dream up aliens and UFOs in space and research crop circles because we don't have to worry about how we're going to eat. We don't have to worry about where we're going to sleep right now. Like we're able to be artistic because and access that part of our brain because we don't have to worry about the other part. But back in these people's times, that just really was not an option, right? So you got to wonder, what was the purpose? It can't be purely decorative. It's got to be a meaning to it, right? I mean, I don't know. That's where my brain goes.
Because you can only see it from the sky, high up in the sky. So that's why a map or a form of communication makes the most sense as far as the theories come.
Right.
I wish there was a little bit more history told in those, but that's one of the mysteries of the world, man.
So the difference between crop circles and geoglyphs, the nice thing about geoglyphs is that they can perform basic archaeological tests, right? So you can tell by like some of these, you can tell, okay, they're typically these geoglyphs, they might have stones buried about anywhere from 12 to 16 inches deep into the earth. Well, that'll give you a relative idea of how long ago that was dug up, because sediment, and they can kind of, backdate that. They also find a lot of old broken tools and pickaxes and things like that. So if you find a bronze axe or something buried next to, you're like, dang, okay, this is Bronze Age, right? This is Stone Age, so on and so forth. But with the crop circles, that's the problem is like I said, like a farmer can come in, harvest that field this year, and then the evidence is essentially wiped out, right? Except for those ghost images or whatever. But, so therein lies the mystery. No one really understands the purpose, and we also don't really understand sort of how they got there or why, right? So that's why I'm super stoked on it. I mean, if I was to get a tattoo, I might do one of these cool geoglyph, like Atacama giant.
Caveman drawings? You want to do the giant?
Dude, that's pretty sick. I think that's kind of cool.
Oh, I might get the horse.
I don't want to cultural appropriate anything, though, so I don't know. I don't think I'm of like Irish and Norwegian descent. I don't think my peeps were doing anything as cool as this. Back 5,000 years ago, I think they were just trying to figure out how to stay warm up in the frickin' northern part of Europe. But a lot of this stuff seems to be happening in more of like equatorial regions. So I think there might be a parallel to desert, being able to draw in the desert, something about it being preserved, rock and stone. You know what I mean? Like other than like high winds in the desert, I think that if you do stuff in a more tropical climate, there's a more chance or likelihood it gets erased. You know what I mean? Although I will say that while I was researching this, they are starting to find a ton of other geoglyphs in the Amazon. Unfortunate.
With that new technology they have now.
They're just starting to dig into that.
Well, they have LiDAR, but
what they uncover in there.
It's a cool story, but it's also sad because unfortunately the reason why they're finding this stuff is because of the deforestation of the Amazon. Gotcha. So as they continue to wipe out a lot of the trees, the pyramids and different signs of civilizations are popping up, which is cool to make those discoveries, but it's kind of a shame that we have to, mutilate the desert there. Desert, the rainforest to get there, but it's all over, and it's not just here on Earth. Tomas, if you want to pull up the last images I sent, so there is Dustin. I'm going to throw this one at you. People also think that there are geoglyphs on Mars.
Hell yeah, baby!
And I'm sure that you guys have probably seen. There it is, the famous face on Mars. Right, the man-made the face on Mars, and then there's also a like a pyramid-looking one. Now these could be geoglyphs or they could be pareidolia.
Structures.
You know what pareidolia is?
What is the definition of pareidolia?
Pareidolia is, I knew you were going to ask me, so I actually copy and paste it and already saved it for you. I was like, I'm going to drop this word on him, and I'm going to sound so smart, and he's going to be like, what does that mean? Pareidolia it's the tendency for perception to impose a meaningful interpretation on a nebulous stimulus, usually visual, so that one sees an object, pattern, or meaning where there is none. So essentially, when I look at that, you could look at this and say, hey, there's a pyramid there. But what NASA scientists might say is that's just a play of light and shadow and your mind kind of playing tricks on you.
Yeah, of course I'm going to say that. A mirage.
Just like the face on Mars, which looks like a pretty clear face, but taken from a different angle or a different time of day, it's not so face looking apparently, but still fun to think about, man. Would those geoglyphs predate the ones that we find here on Earth, or
gotta go back and find out?
I know we got to get Elon over there. Elon, what's up, dude?
Get there soon enough.
Need you to 3D print me a habitat over there. I need a vacation spot on Mars.
Podcast studio.
Right. Right. So anyway, Dustin, you were, what else did you find about crop circles? Because I know you were 2 feet in, and when we were first talking, did I sway you over to my side? Because you were kind of leaning more hoaxy, man-made.
You did. I mean, that's always. And
I was fired up. I was ready to come at you, but I feel like I kind of changed your mind already.
You got me, man. You did change my mind a little bit. There's just so many people like those Dave and whatever is Dave and Bob, whatever their names were.
Dave and Doug, dude.
Dave and Doug. Right. Dave and Doug. It's
Dumb and Dumber.
It can be replicated, and that's why it's hard to justify it. But when there's evidence such as radiation or being so freaking perfect, or the math that's involved, to me it's really hard to replicate. But there's also sightings and stories of UFOs landing and taking off and not leaving anything like that. As far as a pattern goes, I know they do leave what's reported as residual energy or radiation signatures behind, but not always do they leave a pattern. So why do sometimes they leave a pattern, sometimes they do? And I think communication would be the best theory for that. And I think you did sway me a little bit, because before this episode I was talking about, I think it's just a little bit of crop art for you. Not crop dusting, crop art. Same thing.
Yeah, big difference. Make that distinction. So UFO. I would, not that I know the answer, but I would offer an answer, which is there are many different types of UFOs that are spotted. There's triangles, there's cylinders, there's spheres, right? It depends on where they land, but many times where things have apparently touched down, there has been some type of burning or singeing, right? People have talked about, it lit the ground on fire. Reading about Jacques Vallée, a lot of the materials that he's collected when researching this type of stuff, these machines, let's call them, I'm assuming they're machines or whatever, these vehicles, they tend to leave this slag, this material that falls off of them, whether it's fuel or a byproduct or something. But people report this thing flew past me and a bunch of crap fell off of it, fell on the ground. It was hot. It looked like it was molten state at first. And then when you pick it up, it was like this hardened material. And he actually has some. And, this is what these people are testing and out in the Silicon Valley and trying to figure out what it is and stuff. So there's definitely trace evidence of these things. And you're right. I mean, a crop circle is definitely intentional. I mean, some of these ones are super high def. Like, Tomas, did I send you the one that's the gray alien with the disc?
Let me see.
Did I send you that one? Dude, this one was a trip. So if somebody made this, then my hat's off to them.
I don't think I have that one.
Just Google it real quick. You can find it. Because I want to bring this up, because there was one guy when I was watching Ancient Aliens while Tomas is doing that. I mean, how do you explain? So Dustin, this guy, there's two spirals colliding in one of these. This was back in 2014. So Doug and Dave,
I'm excited
again,
to see this thing. Yeah, I'm excited to see this thing.
Probably way back. So there's two spirals colliding in the one I'm talking about, where this guy, he's some sort of astronomer or something, and he's looking at it and he's like, that kind of looks like something that's called it's two neutron stars. And when these neutron stars collide, they create what's called a magnetar. And I had never heard of this before. And apparently magnetars are incredibly rare. There's only like 10 of them in our Milky Way galaxy. So he sees it and he's like, okay, well, whatever. And then later on, like a couple of years later, we're talking, it's discovered that scientists recorded and found a new magnetar in that time frame, and it was discovered it was actually made public, and it was made public that it was actually discovered on like July 14th, 2014, and this guy saw that and was like, wait a second, because the crop circle was done on July 13th, 2014.
Interesting.
So
you see it here?
The magnetar spirals?
Yeah.
No.
Search magnetar, yeah.
Yeah, put in magnetar or spiral crop circle or whatever. There you go. Look at that. I mean, those are magnetars.
Those are pretty rad. Yeah, those are pretty rad.
So, but no, look up, Tomas, just look up straight up alien with holding disc crop circle or whatever. Alien face.
I think you did that. Oh, it's an alien face?
Yeah, I'm talking about two different things here. So there's an alien face.
Okay,
I'm going to get to one, and then I was just telling you about the magnetar one. Just keep scrolling. It's pretty apparent.
There's some pretty intricate designs that are popping up here, though.
Yeah.
Oh, this one.
Yeah, on the far left there, or in the middle. Yeah, your mouse was on it. Whatever. There you go. So, anyway, the magnetar, just to figure that out, just to put a cap on that while he's pulling up this image, the magnetar thing was basically, how could someone have known about a magnetar before it was ever discovered, and then gone out and executed a perfect crop circle explaining
and
that?
how do you know how big this piece is?
How big it is in the field?
Yeah.
I don't know. Typical large.
Yeah.
There you go. So look at this.
That's interesting.
So that is your typical like gray alien, all right? Now,
yeah.
I'm not an artist. I know that like if you are a mural artist,
yeah.
Look, if you're painting a mural, there are artistic methods to essentially scaling up an image, right? So you could create an image and then you could scale it so that you could put it in on the wall of a building, right? So I know that there's ways to do that. This would have to be incredibly like, my God, there's no way you could do this in an evening, right? With like two dudes, couple headlamps, right? Like that is a typical gray alien. Now, there's a disc, and when you start in the center and you spiral out, the little cubes that they left there is binary code. All right.
Oh, shit.
And when you break down the binary code, there is a message written there. And I grabbed the message and I'm going to read it to you now. So this is what that message says with that alien. That message says, "Beware the bearers of false gifts and their broken promises. Much pain, but still time. Believe there is good out there. We oppose deception. Conduit closing." So that's the message that's on that sphere right now, if you read it out. And it's eerily similar to the message, if you remember the Rendlesham Forest incident. Jim, was it Pendleton? I'm saying. But the guy that touched the craft in Rendlesham and immediately was hit with a bunch of visions and hieroglyphs, are essentially symbols, and he kept hearing binary code, 1s and 0s. And when he finally gave it to someone and they wrote out the message, it was eerily similar in phrasing, and it was also a warning about deceptive, don't trust the people from Sirius B or whatever, right? It was stuff like that, and it was also about hey, you need to take care of your planet, kind of a thing. And so some people like to write it off because they think this is just a bunch of liberal mumbo jumbo tree huggers trying to save the planet using aliens to tell us, and it's all fits in a perfect little box. But I mean, I don't know. I find it eerily similar. I'd have to look up the timeline between when Rendlesham Forest happened, which was it was mid 80s, I believe. Was it early 90s? Versus when that crop circle appeared. That would be interesting to check those dates. But what do you think about that, dude?
Yeah, 80s, 1980.
December 26th and 28th, 1980 is Rendlesham Forest.
Yeah.
1980. What about that crop circle? You able to see when that one popped up?
I'll look for it right now.
Nice. What do you think about that, Dustin, though? You think a man made that stuff?
That's pretty fascinating. I mean, I wouldn't put it past a man. It's the human being is capable of some amazing things, and there's some extreme nerds out. There's some extreme nerds out there. But that is pretty creepy. I'm not going to lie. I mean, it's hard to imagine someone creating that and executing to perfection overnight.
Here would be my other question. Just like we asked, why did the ancient people draw the big geoglyphs in the mountainside, right? Why?
Yeah.
Let me ask you this. Why? If you're that smart and talented to perfectly execute a crop circle, alien face, and input some cryptic message and binary code into this disk, and what are you doing this for? Because nobody's making money off of this. There's people aren't, other than Doug and Dave, there wasn't really it's not like Banksy and is out there making crop circles and everyone's like, yo, did you see the new Banksy drop out in Wiltshire fucking cornfield?
I mean, if anyone would do it, it would be Banksy.
I mean, dude, I would totally get down on a Banksy crop circle painting. That'd be amazing. Let's get that info. Do you think he listens to the show?
We could try. We can reach out to him. We should make a crop circle. We should make a crop circle of our own. Free marketing. Let's put it out there. Spend a night. Yeah.
But I just don't understand why you would do it, and why would you do it for so long? I could get you and me getting drunk one night and being like, hey, it'd be funny is if we made a crop circle and we totally messed with all the UFO nerds, right? But then it was like
to continue.
Yeah, hold on. Let's go learn sacred geometry. Let's go before we do that, let's learn sacred geometry. Let's learn how to bend wheat stalks without breaking them. Let's also go zap it with some kind of crazy microwave so that when these idiots go and they find radiation, we can be like, haha, you laugh. There's so much layers to it that the level of deception would have to be so far thought out that it almost becomes a waste of time when I think about doing it and to what end? You know what I mean?
Yeah, absolutely agree. It's impressive. If someone actually did do that, it's impressive. But wouldn't you want? I think if they did, they would come out and try to take credit for it. Like fucking Dave and Doug try to do.
Dude,
you can't just let that work go to waste. Yeah.
Yeah, I'd want to get credit and I'd want to find out how to monetize that, right? But nobody's doing that. And I'm not saying just because no one's taking credit for it or whatever, that's not a sound reason to exclude that they're man-made just because no one's taking credit for it.
Yeah.
But I just, for the life of me, I can't understand how thousands upon thousands of images across the world over thousands of years.
Yeah.
That's just not something that is like my brain cannot find a rational like logic to how that would possibly continue to be executed by some kind of sacred Illuminati hoax thing going on that's just generational. Hey man, make sure that every 100 years we continue to like do these weird images and blow people's minds. So that means that I just think there's an ulterior motive. What that is, I don't know. Is it aliens? Is it UFOs? Is it ghosts, goblins, witches, demons? I don't know. But that's why we do this podcast. That's why we dig deep. That's why people spend their weekends going out and researching this stuff, right? Tomas, you find out when that crop circle appeared by chance?
I believe it was August 15th, 2002.
Oh. 2002. All right. So the Rendlesham, now the other thing is when Rendlesham happened, I know that they did not decipher that code that guy was seeing in his head
for a while, right?
Immediately in 1980. Yeah. So I don't want you don't have to go down the total rabbit hole because that might be harder to figure out. When did they actually decipher that message? But I'm pretty sure that was on like an Ancient Aliens episode, and that was not long ago. Like we're talking within the last decade. So if 2002, you said, was
2002
was the alien thing, safe to say that message that came out of the binary code was probably not publicized till much later. Yeah. So anyway, guys, that's what I got. Obviously, I mean, I'm fascinated by it. My research probably made me ask more questions than found answers. I think it's very cool to be researching something that people don't have a lot of great answers to. I, for the life of me, will never understand why archaeologists and some people will just they'll find this very like kind of face value answer real quick, and they'll just say, "Well, it was just a hunting kill pit." Now I'm going to turn my brain off and never think about this again. I'm not going to go any deeper than that. And you're like, really? Because it doesn't look like that to me. And they're just like, well, you're experiencing periodolia, right? Yeah. And I'm just like, don't throw your big college words at me, okay? I can see. It looks like it's something crazy. That looks like an astronaut or a crazy spiral or some kind of wormhole thing, okay, dude? Dustin, did I drag you over to my side? I'm like, fuck these hoaxers.
You did. No, you did. So do you think it's alien? Do you think it's extraterrestrial? Do you think it's something from above communicating? We don't know why, but do you think they're the ones that created it?
I'll end my argument with this. So Tomas, pull up, just Google real quick any of those spiral crop circles. So the spiral, okay,
and there's common patterns that are that happen often.
It's all so the spiral is a very common one. Okay, so a spiral you're going to see in the crop circles. You're going to find them in petroglyphs. You're going to find them in geoglyphs. So you'll find them in big and small. You'll find them in crop circles, right? You can find them all kinds of crazy spiral patterns here. Right, Tomas, click on the middle, second to the left in the middle there. Over
Fibonacci spiral.
Nope, right there. The two. Enhance.
That's a small image, though.
Is it a small one? Oh, it's a baby image.
Enhance.
Oh, look, he's got it. Look, don't ever question our technical. So that's pretty cool. Now, keep this in mind. Put that in your head. Now, Tomas, if you will, please cue up the little like video I sent you of it's kind of pink and purplish looking.
Oh, the pink video.
And what I want to explain here is so the spiral, and it's there's oftentimes it's a vortex. It's seen as being a portal. It's talked about being a wormhole, but clearly the spiral is very important in nature. And it appears in a lot of man-made things. Now, what we're looking at here on the screen, and if you're listening, you're going to have to go to YouTube and watch this stuff because it's super cool. What you are looking at right there, if this continues to play, look at these geometric shapes, and then look what starts to happen. It's spirals on top of spirals. You see that? Pretty cool, right?
Really cool.
What this is you are looking at an egg. A human egg
life, right?
being fertilized. Yes. So that is a sperm cell impacting, I believe, an egg, and they, under a microscope, filmed what the surface of the cell starts to do. And when it starts to mutate and change, it turns into these crazy spiral patterns, start to emit across. And this was a recent finding. I think, Dustin, you actually sent that to me. But this was a finding within the last year or two. I read the article by an MIT scientist. And so what amazes me about that is that the spiral is this very sacred image. And if it can go hearken all the way back to not only wormholes, but to the creation or the instant spark of life here, if you will, what we often see about the universe is that what happens in the micro also happens in the macro. So if we're looking at a spiral is the instant spark of life here in terms of human beings, what's to say that the spiral is not also the birth of the universe or the birth of stars and planets, right? Clearly there's something going on here. So to bring this back to your question, why did I end on this, was what do I think's going on here? I don't know who's communicating and why or whatever, but what is definitely happening is a heightened form of intelligence. So we are either dealing with, I wouldn't say extraterrestrial or whatever, I don't know what it could be, but it's definitely a higher form of intelligence is communicating these high concepts that we are just now beginning to kind of catch up to decades later, right? Like you said, they started in the 60s, 70s, 80s, right? But we don't really fully grasp that. Magnetars and microscopic video images of egg cells being implanted. We don't see that until the 2000s, the 2020s and stuff, because of our technology and our ability to finally start understanding things that were been there in front of our face for 50 years. The thing is, it could be humans. But if it was humans and they're communicating this stuff to us, they are genius level human beings. You're talking like Einstein type of Stephen Hawking individuals creating this stuff. And what a goddamn waste of talent and intelligence that you're wasting your fucking time pushing down wheat stock in the fields of England and not helping us to save the goddamn planet or travel the cosmos or cure cancer or do something fucking productive. You're bullshitting with Doug and Dave out in the cornfields. So that's why.
Getting angry.
Touche, bro.
That's me.
Shay.
That's my fucking conclusion when it comes to crop circles and geoglyphs is if it is man-made, what a fucking waste of time. And God, I hope it's something else. And something a lot cooler than that. So that's what I'll say.
Yeah.
What do you think it is? You want to top that? You want to get in the ring?
I can't top that. I'm just going to agree with you, dude. I mean,
I think
hang up the headphones.
Fucking point.
I dropped the mic if it wasn't attached to the arm in the desk here.
We got to make a promo of Justin just going off, and we'll bleep all the words and just be like, boop, boop,
beep, beep. Doug and Dave. Beep, beep.
Doug and Dave.
Their families are going to write the show and just be like, this guy is like defamation of character or whatever, right? Whatever, dude. You guys can go kick rocks. So
yeah, this is a fun episode, guys. I mean, I still haven't seen the Graham Hancock series on Netflix that you guys are.
You got to watch that.
I got to watch that. I think you guys fired it up in me that
I want to do an episode on
it up
that
tonight.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, Ancient Apocalypse, baby. But yeah, go check it out, man. And then also they have a great interview on Joe Rogan where he just goes deeper, and it's with Randall Carlston. Randall Carlston. I'm probably if I'm not perfect, it's close. So you can Google it.
Yeah.
They got a lot of cool stuff about that. But yeah, archaeologists hate them, and I'm not saying I believe everything Graham Hancock is in. I just think he presents an interesting point, and I think that a lot of this stuff happens to kind of line up with some of the younger Dryas theory of this cataclysmic flooding, and something happened around 10 to 12,000 years ago. And I think ancient people are trying to like send up road flares and just be like, yo, dude, beware of this and this and this. And we're just ignoring the shit out of it because we don't understand it. And it's just very easy for, like I said, for someone to just go, here's like a very superficial face value thought. This is what I read in a book, and I'm not going to dig any deeper than that because I paid a lot of money for my PhD, and I can't come to terms with the fact that your oppositional theory would render my education essentially meaningless if it was based off of misinformation, right? That's a hard pill to swallow. So anyway, I'm done lecturing the universe right now. We'll put a little bow on this one and call it a day. But I hope that we change some hearts and minds out there regardless. Let us know on social media. Check in with us. If you want to go toe-to-toe, let me know what you think. I will happily get in the ring and, gracefully argue with anybody, right? All in good fun, of course. Find us on, find me out. Check us out on Instagram, Twitter, YouTube, the TikTok.
All the good stuff.
I think we're still doing Facebook, but I'm gonna be honest, I don't really check Facebook. So Instagram,
same.
Twitter, and YouTube is probably, and the talk is probably your best bet to get a hold of us. But I'd love to know what you think, right? I made Dustin a believer, and I talked him out of Doug and Dave. And Tomas, we never really got where you were at, but I'm assuming you're on my side now, right? Choose wisely.
There's no sides here.
I think
just want your opinion.
I think it's well within the means of human capabilities to make this. Like, I understand it would be like a very intelligent, person. But the fact that, thinking about, these geoglyphs being made, by ancient civilizations without the technology that we have now. So that I think that it's definitely possible for a man to make these, with the technology that we have now, computers, and being able to scale up. But yeah, I don't know, man. I'm always on the fence. It's so hard for me to lean one way or the other on this show. I know.
Yeah.
So I'm gonna stay on brand and say I'm gonna sit on the fence still. I'm gonna sit on the fence.
We're gonna get you to jump the fence sooner or later, brother. I'm telling you.
Knock him off the fence. Well, why don't we have people tune in? Let's see if anybody's got better arguments. If you want to try to sway Tomas, make sure you hit us up on the social media channels. Leave a goddamn comment, and then we'll have Tomas answer some of these, and we'll see if any of you can sway him. Send us your best evidence. Send us your best evidence for or against. Do you think that this stuff is man-made? Do you think it's extra terrestrial? Do you think it's interdimensional? Is it extra exohuman or whatever it is? Let us know. Make sure you like, comment, subscribe, all that good stuff. And I look forward to tickling more fancies in the future, guys. So till next time, guys, don't forget, Dustin, it's okay to believe.
You're not alone. See you next time.
Peace.
That's one small step for man.
Welcome to Earth.
One giant leap for mankind.
What's up, man? It's lit. UFOs are real.